Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Claire. I'm a contract librarian on assignment here with NOAA Central Library. This seminar series is offered through the NOAA Central Library Seminar Program, which provides an educational forum for the presentation of ideas, research updates, and news in support of NOAA's mission. Before we start, I have a few technical tips for attendees. Just so you are aware, you are muted and you are not able to unmute. However, if you have a question, you can type it into the question panel, and we will get to those during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. If you have trouble seeing the slides or hearing the speaker, please try logging off and logging back on, and that will solve most issues in GoToWebinar. And just as a reminder, this is being recorded, so if you'd like to revisit this seminar or view previous seminars, you can find them on our YouTube channel. Now I'm going to turn it over to the presenter who's going to get the presentation started.
Thank you so much, Claire, and thank you to everybody with the NOAA Science Seminar Series and the library team for having me today. My name is Will Klajbor. I'm a Senior Research Associate with NOAA's Atlantic Oceanographic and Meteorological Laboratory. And I'm here to talk to you guys today a little bit about the National Marine Ecosystem Status website and how it can be a tool for educators at all levels, especially those who are hoping to design curriculum around key ocean science data from NOAA. So I wanted to start with some of the main takeaways for today. For those of you that don't know, as of last year, NOAA has a new website called the National Marine Ecosystem Status Portal, and you can find it at ecowatch.noaa.gov. The site is a cross-NOAA ecosystem effort that provides marine ecosystem status at a glance at the large marine ecosystem scale using publicly available NOAA data in a standardized and understandable format. And the site isn't designed to be the final destination for users. We actually, as a measure of success for our team, we track when people go to our website and click off of our website onto other NOAA websites for deeper dives into the data, for data downloads and things like that. That way they're getting the best information possible right from the source. And we're highlighting the employees and programs that do the fantastic work to get the data and presenting it to end users in a digestible format. And right now we're spreading the word about new features on the site and trying to get some end user feedback, especially from the educational field. The point of the site is to make our data more accessible to members of the general public and to people who might want to learn more about ocean science data at the LME scale. And so we're hoping to get some feedback from you guys today about what we're doing right and what you like about the site and what things you may want to see change in the future. So let's start with why we created this website. Let's say you're an end user of some sort, and there's a good chance some of you guys already are. Maybe you're a college student or a high school teacher, and you're looking for some data related to some coastal or ocean feature process for course curriculum or for a project. You know that NOAA is the federal agency and the leader in collecting, analyzing, and storing this information. But if you aren't familiar with all of NOAA's programs or structure, it would be confusing on where to find some ecosystem data such as chlorophyll A, or know where to check on the current status of an indicator. If you were a high school student or a college student who was interested in finding chlorophyll A, for example, if you were to type that into Google right now, in Google chlorophyll NOAA, you would see several links come up, and I'm sure all of those links are very helpful and have great information, but it might be daunting and confusing about what the best place to look might be. So Dr. Jason Link, who's the senior scientist for ecosystem management within NOAA Fisheries, was often getting questions related to this about where to find data, where to find specific information related to an indicator, or to find information at a glance for a specific region or a certain area. So when you want to get certain information, who are you going to call? You know to go to NOAA, but where? NOAA also has a large number of successful programs and initiatives that develop and report on ecosystem indicators and report cards related to specific mandates and mission objectives. And these report cards do a great job informing the public and also provide a suitable testbed for next generation research, but there's no single source or one-stop shop that summarizes or synthesizes across these important efforts and/or that provides a broader overview of conditions across U.S. marine ecosystems or mission topics. And a lot of these report cards or ecosystem indicator suites are not necessarily designed for consumption by the public. A lot of them are facing towards managers or other scientists who are using that information to justify and further their own research. Data is often made available via multiple mission-specific product types, and it's dispersed across disparate access points. For example, making multiple sources hard to locate and compile, and information from different ocean use sectors often fragmented, even if it's in the same area. And so we're faced basically with this huge problem of a lot of data, a lot of ways to find the data, but not a comprehensive way to look at data side by side or make it understandable for the public. So to Dr. Link, it seemed efficient and effective to have a website that addressed this issue. So as a team, we were granted support from the NOAA Research Council, which is now the Science Advisory Board, to form a cross-NOAA working group that works together to develop a web-based platform that reports status and condition across US geographies and NOAA mission areas on a select set of existing ecosystem indicators. These indicators are scalable by geography, meaning that you can look at specific regions. They're scalable by theme, so the climate indicators can be found alongside one another. And an important thing is that all of these indicators leverage and coordinate work that already exists. All of this data already existed somewhere within NOAA's portfolio of data portals or data access points. We were just bringing it all together in one place. And then finally, it brings this data together in a way that can be understood by members of the public and provides links to resources for a deeper dive for those who are hoping to get a more comprehensive view of some of the data. And this kind of speaks a little bit more to our target audience, which is why I have you all here today. We're really a lot less focused on the scientists who are doing the actual nitty-gritty work and more focused on educators and stakeholders who are interested in major ecosystem issues. For example, someone who might live in an area that's impacted by harmful algal blooms, or reporters or the general public who are trying to get a better sense of large-scale status and trends of US waters. And so I've been talking a lot about ecosystem indicators, and before we get into a tour of the site and an actual look at what this has turned into, I wanted to define indicators so that you guys have a better sense of what we're talking about. So as you all know, marine ecosystems provide food, jobs, security, well-being, and other services to millions of people across the US. But these increasingly complex challenges are the status and trends of the ocean and coastal ecosystems that we rely on as humans are critically important for monitoring and for just general knowledge of anybody who's affected by the ocean in the US. So we need indicators in order to tell where things are changing and identify potential issues. So we use the definition of quantitative and or qualitative measures of key components of an ecosystem over time. So all of the indicators on our site provide some sort of insight into the general status of an ecosystem in a given area at a given time. And we make them intentionally simple and digestible for our site so that A, they can be compared to one another, but B, so that anybody who's interested in finding out more information about the status and trend of US waters can do so. So the result of all this effort was the National Marine Ecosystem Status Portal being launched in October 2020. Right now, the website hosts 34 distinct indicators across 20 themes and 7 large marine ecosystem regions, which I'll give an example in just a moment, but are broken down into large-scale basins across the US. So the California Current, for example, the Gulf of Mexico, and so on. Another interesting thing about this website is that it provides a national status across our indicators as well. So for example, if you were to go to our national status page, which I'll show you in just a moment, you could see a sort of a general status and trend for all of the indicators, things like sea surface temperature, chlorophyll A, etc., across all waters of the United States. And the other very cool result of this specific portal is that we've developed unique, accessible visualizations of key data and plain language to go along with those visualizations to make all of this data extremely accessible to anybody who would be interested in accessing it. Our portal was last updated in October 2021, and we plan to continue to update it annually so that new data is available as soon as it becomes available on our sources. And before we go into that tour of the site, I did want to talk a little bit more about this consistent approach to displaying data, like I mentioned. So in working with some of our partners who develop ecosystem status reports for managers or members of the public, we've borrowed, for managers or scientists, we've borrowed this very cool time series engaged visualization setup that provides a large amount of information in sort of a very small capsule. And so these time series for each indicator provide key data points over time on the x-axis with indicator units on the y-axis. They're very clear, and they also provide percentile values and median indicator values so that you can easily track those things in a glance. We also have on the right our recent trend analysis, which shows the trends for a key indicator over the last 5 years. And so that little glyph, which you can see is a plus sign for this specific example on the right, shows that the indicator as it exists right now is above the 90th percentile relative to the entire historical time series. And the trend over the last 5 years is that the slope is less than 1 standard deviation, so it's decreasing over that time. As you can see along the bottom, we also have these speedometer gauges that accompany each time series that give a sense as to where the indicator sits among percentile rank of all data points in a time series. And like I mentioned before, all of these visualizations come with plain language that's tailored to each of the visualizations, specifically that explain in extremely understandable language what is being displayed for each indicator and how to analyze the trends. So I'm going to switch over away from the PowerPoint right now into an actual tour of the website so that you guys can see firsthand some of the things that I'm talking about. So if you go to the main homepage, which I said before is ecowatch.noaa.gov, you're greeted with this landing page, which breaks down the key purposes of the website and why we're doing what we're doing here. And the indicators are sorted into three different sort of formats that you can view them. You can explore the indicators regionally, spatially by large marine ecosystem, thematically by large group, or through that national status, which, as I mentioned before, is a sort of collation of all of the waters of the United States. So let's start with the regional indicators. So these are the 7 main large marine ecosystems that we have indicators for right now. I'm happy to announce that we're actually going to be adding Great Lakes indicators to the website very soon. But let's say you are a teacher in California and you're interested in learning some more about status and trends of key indicators in the California current. You click on this page, which can also be found up at the top in the drop-down menu. It brings you to the regional page here. One second, my computer's running slowly. And as you can see, all of the indicators for the region that are available are now shown side by side. These indicators are displayed this way to make it easy to compare and contrast trends over time. And so the x-axis is consistent along all of the indicators. And like I mentioned before, all of these indicators have a plain language designed to help with interpretation. So if you click on a specific indicator, for example, if we were looking at the California current zooplankton annual mean values here, it comes with a description of time series and a description of the speedometer gauge, which are specific to these visualizations and help with interpretation, as well as descriptions of the indicator themselves, why the indicator would be important in the context of ecosystem science within that area, and then data background and caveats as to how the data was collected and treated before visualization. We also provide some information along the sides about key characteristics of each ecosystem, And then along the bottom are links to NOAA and partner websites that may provide a deeper dive or a different perspective on some of the data that's hosted on the site. All of the data that's hosted on the site as well is directly linked in each of the thematic pages, which I'll show you in just a moment. So if you were interested in maybe a specific indicator rather than a specific region, say you're interested in sea surface temperature and comparing across basins, there's also thematic pages that allow you to view status and trends of each indicator across basins. So for example, here with sea surface temperature, you can easily at a glance compare trends in the Alaska East Bering Sea, as well as the Gulf of Alaska and any of the other regions that we have data for. And the same thing goes for the resources, the plain language, and the data access. So the data sources for all the indicators are available not only on the side here, but also in the plain language descriptions for each indicator, which allows somebody who might be interested in a deeper dive into sea surface temperature to either go and read more about how the data was collected or download the data for themselves. And then finally, the last novel aspect of the site, like I mentioned before, is the national status, which provides an overview of all of these indicators across all waters of the United States. So if you look around, you'll notice the same indicators that are available at the regional level and in the thematic drop-down boxes, except adjusted to represent all waters of the United States. And then the same thing goes, once again, with the plain language and the data access points. We also have a general page for more resources related to ecosystem perspectives on NOAA data and partner data. And so overall, it's designed to be a one-stop shop for anybody who would be looking for anything related to these ecosystem indicators in the waters of the United States. So where are we now and where's this website going? And then we're going to talk a little bit more about how it could potentially be used as an educational tool before we move into collecting feedback or answering questions from you all. Like I mentioned before, the website is updated annually, and so we have direct connections to the data sources for each of our indicators, and we're constantly reviewing and adding new indicators using a set criteria that are available on the website. We're actually undergoing the process right now of reviewing proposals for new indicators, and we're hoping to have those up on the site in early fall 2022. We're also working on developing new tools with partner programs, and so as this project has gained traction and attention throughout NOAA and the broader scientific community, we've identified needs for development of indicators for data sets that may not already have them. And some programs are actually using our site as a motivation to request funding to develop new products that will eventually end up on the site. We're currently working on expanding into maps and experimenting with ways to display data spatially in a way that's consistent with our values and goals as a program. So making sure that the data is easily understandable and accessible for anybody who wants to access it. And like I mentioned before, we're really excited to be moving towards including the Great Lakes region on the website. So the Great Lakes also fall under the purview of NOAA. It's a water of the United States. And so we're working on developing indicators with our Great Lakes partners and hope to have those up on the website soon. So as a tool for educators, that's why we have you guys here today. We want to hear from you guys and hear how you guys would consider using the site or hear about things that you like about the site or what might not be working for you on the site. So I'd really encourage everybody here to not only peruse the web portal, but spread the word to any other educators or educational resources that you think might find something like this useful, and let us know how we can improve the site for you. Like I said before, our goal is to get this information, this data out to members of the interested public and turn it into something that's useful for people. NOAA is a fantastic organization that does a lot of great work, and we also work very hard as an organization to make our data publicly accessible. And so if there are ways that we can improve our delivery of this data, either through this site or other sites, in order to help educators or other interested members of the public, we want to hear about it. So some ideas that we've tossed around as a team about sort of improving the site for educators, potentially designing dedicated education modules in coordination with educators or former educators, coming up with web stories that point out cool and interesting trends in the data that may turn into stories or modules that gain people's attention, and then videos that guide people through the site, how to use the site, and kind of show them how to navigate it. So that's all I have planned as far as the guided portion of this presentation, but I did want to leave quite a bit of time to collect feedback and answer questions about the website from people who might be interested in using the site, or from people who have either positive or critical feedback related to the site from an educator's perspective. And so I wanted to thank you guys, first of all, for giving me your attention and time and hearing about the website a little bit. And I really look forward to hearing what you guys have to say, not only in the Q&As, but also in the pop-up survey after you exit the webinar.
Okay, so we do have a question here. What are your favorite educator features on the site?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, I really think the combination of the visualizations and the plain language that go along with each of the indicators are the most valuable pieces of, are the most valuable tools that I think educators could be using either for lesson planning, designing labs, or even homework assignment for an oceans related class or an environmental science class. Our team works really hard with communications experts and with people who actually have strong connections to the educational community to place the language that we use to describe each indicator and the trends that we see on each of the visualizations in terms that almost everybody could understand. And so for me, when I was cruising through the site and when I became a member of the team, I always thought it would be very cool to either come up with an assignment or as a student, from a student's perspective, I think it would be very valuable to sort through these plain language summaries and sort of use it as an exercise to not only get a better sense of general status and trends for really key ecosystem components, but then also use it as an opportunity to explore data portals that exist through NOAA, like the one highlighted over here on the left, or do their own research onto being able to visualize data, something like that. Like I said before, this is designed to be a diving board. There's a lot of information that's existing on site, and we work really hard to make it accessible. But I also think there's the opportunity to turn it into a bit more of a scavenger hunt from a sort of research perspective.
Thanks. Okay. Let's see. We do have a follow-up question to that. Were any youth or teacher voices included in the website development?
Yeah. So that's a great question as well. Yes. So in the 3 or 4 years that the team was designing this website, there was a good amount of feedback, not only internally from communications experts, but then also externally working with educators through connections in listservs, through connections through Sea Grant programs and extension agents and things like that. We didn't have any dedicated educators on the team itself, but we did collect feedback from educators and members of the public after the initial development of the site, in the visualization and things like that. And that's also part of what I'm doing here today, is making sure that we're reaching our end goal of making something that's useful to people who are in the educational community, and if we're not, finding ways that we can be.
Okay, thanks. And just a reminder to everyone, you can put your questions in the questions panel still. I have a question here. I am interested in teaching junior high students about the recent research concerning ocean apocalypse with global warming and extinction. Is this research going to be included in your annual update in October 2022?
Definitely. So we do have quite a few indicators that are directly related to climate. And I think if that was something that you were interested in doing, I think this could be a great tool for sort of exploring all the factors that go into how climate change's effects on the ocean. So for example, we do include physical indicators like sea surface temperature and sea level. But on top of that, it would be very interesting, I think, to explore trends in those indicators alongside things like billion-dollar disasters, beach closures, trends in commercial fishing and things like that. It is difficult to develop specific indicators related to broader scale trends like climate change, as you know. It's very difficult to quantify the effects of something like that, especially at the scales that we're talking about. But climate change is the greatest issue that we're facing as a society, and so it colors quite a bit of the work that we're doing and quite a bit of the data and work that NOAA is collecting and maintaining. And so while there won't specifically be a climate change indicator, most of the indicators, if not all of the indicators on our site are directly affected by climate change. And so I think there's a really great opportunity, I think, to develop curriculum related to that, especially in a way that incorporates a lot of perspectives and explores sort of the far-reaching effects of climate change.
Thanks. So it looks like that is the last question I have here, but I'm going to wait about a minute and see if anything else comes through.
Sounds good.
Okay, we do have more questions. I noticed there are links to ocean-related websites at the bottom of each page. Do you also have links to well-established news sources, such as the New York Times, that discuss ocean conditions?
That's a great question. So that's not something that we have right now. The website itself is mostly focused on connecting to either government resources or partner resources that work with NOAA to either provide data or provide more information about the data that's already collected. As far as specific news stories or things that might elaborate on these trends, we don't have any connections to those right now, but I think that's something we could look into exploring in the future. I think that's a great suggestion.
Okay, what website do you think would be most useful for the educators working across the 28 national estuarine research reserves partnering with NOAA?
That's a great question. Also, a great place to be partnering. So NERS is the acronym for that, the National Estuarine Reserve Program. And I think off the top of my head, NERS has a couple of databases where you can explore data related to the estuaries specifically. I don't know those off of the top of my head, unfortunately, but I know they do a lot of partnering with the national NCOS, which is the National Ocean and Coastal Service, which is a part of NOAA, as well as the USGS. And so I wish off the top of my head I could direct you to the data portals that I'm thinking of, but I think if you were to Google NERS USGS data portal, I think that would bring you to what I'm thinking of. I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer for you there.
Sorry, just clarification here. I may have misread the question. What on this website would be most useful?
Oh, of course.
My apologies.
No worries, no worries. No, so obviously estuaries are a very important part of our ocean and coastal ecosystem as well. And for people who are interested in those types of indicators, I think specifically some of the physical indicators like sea surface temperature and sea level are big ones that I think obviously would have dramatic effects on our estuaries. But also, I'm an ecosystem scientist myself, and so I think it would be really interesting to explore some of the human dimensions trends around some of the estuarine environments on this website. So things like coastal tourism and coastal employment. A lot of the hot areas for those indicators and places where you see a lot of variation in those indicators happen to be around large population zones, which can be centered around some of our largest estuaries. And so to me, those physical and human dimensions indicators, I think would be a really cool thing to explore in that partnership.
Okay, is there a site or app that classes can add to their observations of changes that can help add to data collection?
That's a fantastic question. So yes, I do know that NOAA is working hard on prioritizing citizen science programs and putting together some cool partnerships with NASA and other scientific agencies to add observations and things like that. I don't know what any of them are off of the top of my head. I know there is an interesting one based on Landsat remote sensing data, where people who are interested and have computer access can go and help to sort of tune the algorithm in order to identify kelp canopies in satellite images. But like I said, that's not necessarily my area of expertise. I would go and check out the NOAA education website for citizen science programs there. And I know for a fact they're trying, especially in this virtual world that we're living in now, trying to turn some of those citizen science opportunities into ones that can be accessed through the computer in order to make them more accessible.
Okay, so let me make sure I'm getting this right. Can you point everyone to the links at the bottom of each page and other resources, especially NERS and NMS webpage in each region?
Sure. Yeah, I highly encourage you guys to go to the site. All of our partner and other database links are available at the bottom of each page for the regional pages as well as thematically. And so if you're interested in NERS and estuarine environments, like I said, some of those relevant indicators might be sea level. You can check out the sea level rise viewer. There's data downloads there, large scale trends, and other really great data access portals that are available there. The more resources tab will have access to things like ocean reports, which provides key demographic data around estuaries or specific areas, which I think could be really cool. As well as Digital Coast, which is the specific data portal for coastal data within NOAA, could also be extremely relevant. But all of this can be found on the website on each page, and then also under this More Resources tab.
Thank you. So it looks like that's everything. Again, I'll give everyone a minute just in case anybody is typing. And I'm not seeing anything coming through, so I think we might wrap up a little bit early here. I just want to remind everyone that when the webinar ends, you will get a pop-up that will have a survey, and we do encourage you to take that survey. And that will be immediately after this. So thank you to our presenters today. Thank you all for joining us. This will be on YouTube by tomorrow. That will be uploaded. And you can find this and all of our seminars there. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and have a great night.